Yes.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I am ready, babe.
Are you ready?
Yeah,
Okay, good, 'cause
we're
we're
already
live.
on. I knew that. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. You can't fool me anymore. You think you're so cool, don't you? You think
Yeah.
you think you're playing me like a fiddle, but you're not.
What? I'm not?
No, no. I'm too
Oh.
smart. I'm like a wily old fox.
Old. Old is right, yes.
Wily.
Oh, goodness
There's like
gracious.
Wily Coyote
Yeah.
references.
All right, well, hey, welcome everybody. As you can see, Bob Galen's in the house. I'll try not to make jokes while he's drinking because he has a very nice, expensive setup here. I don't want to cover it with his vitamin water. So today is what is this? This is our second stream of 2019.
Oh, you streamed on New Year's Day.
I did. We had a fantastic turnout.
Dude.
We streamed on Christmas Day.
I know. I noticed that.
Yeah. We had a good
You
time.
are like you're the man.
I am all in, my
Who
friend.
does that? You're like all in. You're committed to this.
All in. So first and foremost, big thanks to Scrum Sarge and Brave Dave for their 2 and 3 month anniversaries as Twitch Prime subscribers. Thank you so much. That is exciting and fantastic. Oh, actually, Scrum Sarge is correct. We did top the charts. So we were at one point on New Year's Day the top podcast Twitch stream.
No way.
In English, which was nice. It was cool. So we had all these random people.
Does that mean we should start like speaking in French and Italian and stuff?
You can try. I won't. But it was interesting when that happened. Random people just started dropping in on our stream. Some were positive and some were not positive. Thank you to Scrum Sarge.
Did Sippy Cup come back?
Sippy Cup did not come back. But we had some other folks come in, and Scrum Sarge was like, timeout, ban, timeout, ban. Yeah, because they were just,
I mean, I'm scarred by Sippy Cup. That was the weirdest thing.
Sippy Cup is like, I've embraced him or her, and it's just, that's a part of the Kazi lore and our Twitch stream.
I know,
lore. It was a moment in time that I'll never forget.
It was the weirdest, like, from left field comments that were coming in.
And that happened on New Year's Day, too.
Really?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man. Scrum Sarge knows French, too. Yeah, you're right. Ninja does wish he was like us. They asked us to do
Scrum Sarge.
New Year's Eve.
Stop showing off.
Well.
Oh, my God. Pourquoi pas?
You could pronounce that. I could not. So that's good. So again, you guys are ahead of us.
I can't pronounce. I mean, I took.
I know a little bit of Spanish only because my stepmother was a high school Spanish teacher, so it was in my home, and I just learned it.
Okay.
So look at Mr. Wilkins with I at least know how to pronounce that.
Cool.
YouTube Rewind 2019.
What Wilkins? Oi.
Brave Dave, we are on our way. And just like Ninja with it, so I don't know if you saw, but Ninja live streamed from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. on New Year's Eve. Had all his friends there in Times Square.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not.
It was crazy. Just a crazy thing that
like from outside?
He was inside. He was in a building right in Times Square. Like you could look beyond him.
Wow.
Yeah, so as a Twitch guy, I felt obligated to watch it as a dad with a son who loves Ninja like he's the coolest man on the face of the earth. We had to watch it.
You mean like not you? It's Ninja? It's
Ninja,
no. Then Dad?
Yeah, no. Ninja.
Ninja.
Yeah, Ninja. Oh, yeah. That's okay. That's okay. He seems to be a pretty good guy. He made a few mistakes in his day, but that's all right. He's learning.
So I saw Scrum Sarge the other day. He asked a question about something. What was it? I saw...
I don't know.
Scrum Sarge, you were talking about... new teams? No.
Well, we do have something from Brave Dave that we need to get to.
Okay.
That came through Discord. And by the way, thank you to everybody in Discord because it's jumped up a level thanks to you guys continuing the conversation.
What is Discord?
There. Discord is essentially Slack, but it's tied directly into Twitch. So
you can take after a stream, you can go to Discord or something.
Right, and the subscription levels carry over. So if you're a subscriber via Twitch Prime, which you can hit the button up above me, you get in additional channels. You get additional content in Discord.
Okay.
So it's cool. I'm actually thinking when Kazi blows up or my other startup blows up, I'll probably use Discord as the main chat tool instead of Slack.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because it actually was created before Slack, so it's been around for quite a while. So I think they're a bit more optimized with how they operate. So anyway, there's some cool things, but that's not why you're here. Thanks to my wife for the sweet Kazi T-shirt. That was a Christmas present, so excited about that. You can gift a free sub.
A free sub?
Yeah.
What's this?
A subscription.
Oh,
so you can subscribe.
I immediately went to food. I went to like sandwich. Oh, you can gift me a sandwich.
Yeah, so you like a foot long.
Yeah. I was like
a ham and turkey and cheese.
I was like mentally all over. I was mentally all over that. I'm like, yes, gift them.
Oh gosh, I guess there's an emoji. Speaking of emojis and Walter, Bob has turned over. Is it a resolution? Right now, whenever I talk to Bob or text Bob,
what?
He doesn't respond using words.
I do emojis, man.
Only emojis. And it's weird because your first emoji is appropriate. Like it's an appropriate response. Like this morning I said, "Hey Bob, I'll be at your house about 9:30." He replied with a thumbs up. Okay, cool. Then I get a turkey.
Because it was thumbs up. It was thumbs up turkey.
Oh, you were calling me a turkey?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And then what was the third one? I forget.
I don't remember.
Like
so,
a weird,
actually,
a weird smiley face.
Yeah, it was weird. So
yeah,
here,
like a little monocled smiley face.
Take a look. This is
that was like me giving you the eye look, saying I just called you a turkey.
Yeah, this is my text from Bob. As you'll see, it's mostly emojis.
Hey.
Yeah.
What? I'm modernizing myself.
Yeah. So he's decided to transform into Millennial Bob.
Millennial Bob.
Which is exciting and scary all the same time.
I mean, think about the generations. I'm like in a Wayback Machine. I'm going back in time.
Look at you with a Mr. Peabody reference.
Yeah. See? I'm telling you. It's a new Bob.
Okay, so
can we get to something serious?
Can we get to content? Yeah. So Brave Dave in Discord asked about tools and real live stickies and walls and tape and markers and Jira, and I got all excited. Scrum Sarge, I wish there was a way for me to give you a gift right now. Yes, middle school Bob.
Middle school Scrum Sarge. That hurts.
So I got distracted by that comment because it was so good.
Hardy. Let's get back to serious.
Oh, sorry, serious Bob is
Sarge is taking.
I do that too because I squish the words together. So Brave Day was asking about tools and good ways to use tools, bad ways to use tools. When is a physical board better versus a virtual board? So that was an initial question.
Was this one of our first debates?
This was the first.
Back at Teradata. We used to, because you were the tools guy there, right?
I believe tools were going to solve
because
the
you
world.
were a build guy. You were hired as a build guy. So that was our first like really heated debates, right? Because you were like hot on tooling.
Yeah.
Yeah. What tools were they? IBM? What was it?
It was Jira.
Was it Jira there?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they had some kind of like...
Oh, yeah, the build tools and all that stuff.
There was some ALM-ish thing there.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, because they were a Java shop. So
yeah. But, okay. So we're back like 10 years ago or something.
This is a decade-old argument between
Have you changed, though? Have you seen the light?
Don't bring that up. You know the answer to that.
Have you seen the light?
You know.
Have you learned?
Okay, so let's
have
reset.
You learned, Grasshopper?
Let's reset to 10 years ago. I was hired in as a Scrum Master build guy.
Coach, you were...
Yeah, just kind of this... They just hired me...
You were the second coming of Agile there.
Because they thought I was a good fit, and they kept jamming me in various spots. I started managing, delivering all of the builds, and I was pulling my hair out because it was insane. So tools became the way for me to automate my job so I could focus on the things that I wanted to. Because I didn't want to monitor and babysit builds. There was no reason to do that or to do it by hand. So I started to automate everything I could. We had Jira in place, and we were transitioning the team to Agile from a very waterfall process. And I saw tools as the way to go, as the way to get us there. And Bob repeatedly smacked me down. And I think what happened over time is I've seen the value of both. So in that moment, in that initial debate and discussion, we were arguing from opposite ends of the room. I was, tools are going to solve the world. Tools are going to be how we help this 70-person org get their crap together.
Right.
And you were, no, physical boards are the way to go. So what was your big argument for why physical boards were so much better than the virtual tools?
Well, it's physical everything, so it's low fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look back in Agile time at folks like Martin Fowler, Ron Jeffries, any of the old guard coaches, if you can look back at blog posts and things like that, one of the original sort of premises, if you look back at the XP folks, it was a co-located team. So their communication device was a whiteboard,
mm-hmm.
right? So everything, so the sprint lane, the swim lanes were on a whiteboard. Original XP release planning was on a table. So literally you would use your table that the team would sit at for release planning. Sometimes people would tape off lanes and things. So it was very, very, post-it note, even before post-it note, it was 3x5 index cards, mm-hmm. right? And tape or pins.
Yeah.
And you would pin things down. And it wasn't just the dinosaur quality of that, it was the low fidelity tools, high fidelity communication was the point. In your face communication. Mm-hmm. So low fidelity tools inspired high fidelity face-to-face communication, and that produced results. Even with customers, even the customers would come in and do release planning, or whoever the product owners were, or whatever you wanted to call them. Mm-hmm. Right. So I wanted to get people there. So that was one point. The second point over the years as to why I've gotten persnickety about it is this propensity for leaders to want to lead with tools. So I'm actually less, right? I'm okay with electronic tools. So I've gotten balance.
Yeah.
I'm like in the both.
Yeah. And I think that's where we've ended.
Yeah.
But in that moment a decade ago, we were
But you know
opposing.
what? The reason I get so adamant now, I actually overreact nowadays because I hear this damned argument all the time of lead with tools, mm-hmm. right? We need to buy this tool. Safe. We need to buy a framework. And so I probably get overzealous in sort of slamming them with low fidelity stuff to counteract that zealousness, mm-hmm. that tools solve our problems, right? And I mean, I do that. I see that with leaders more than I see that, although I see it with teams as well.
I think it's very similar to frameworks. People want a framework and a silver bullet. They think, hey, a tool is going to solve this problem and safe is going to solve this problem. So if I can have these two, I can wipe my hands, I'm done. Now it's up to you guys. Like, I did my job. I gave you what you need to succeed. Go do it. When in reality, that really doesn't do anything because so much of it is about the mindset and everything that goes into it. So at that moment, because of the world that I lived in, tools were going to be the way that I was going to wrangle things because I could put business rules and requirements and you can't move this through this workflow without doing these things. So I was forcing...
So you can control the system.
I was forcing behaviors that needed to be in place with a tool.
Right.
And it was similar to that view. So I think I was in that view of, if I do that, I don't really have to do much more work.
Right.
When what I saw is, okay, people are going to game the system.
Right.
People are going to find a way to work around
Well, and you don't change individual behavior.
Right.
You're changing systemic. People are gaming it. You get this facade that you think it's... So that's the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
You get a facade where people are interacting with Atlassian or the check-in log or whatever, but they're gaming the system and they're really not changing behavior. Yeah. Whereas low fidelity sort of... It hits to behavior, right? It's trying to hit the behavior. Again, like I said, I can't believe... I can and I can't. I can't believe that people are in silver bullet syndrome so much today.
You gotta get close to the mic.
All right. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's so it's what is it? 2019. It's almost 2020. It's been 20 plus years.
But it goes back to staples and the easy button, right?
Oh
like
my
that's
God!
What, that's
yeah,
what,
but for God's sakes, I mean, these are like people with years and years of experience. You're right.
Yeah.
But it's like, where has the common sense been that, tools and frameworks don't solve, sort of world hunger.
Right.
So stop it. It augments it. They're good.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, it's not like, you can't buy solutions. You have to create them, right?
You have to actually do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and so there's a company I'm helping right now, and we stood up chapters. The VP that hired me and brought me in to help did a fantastic thing. So he stood up the QA chapter, and they didn't have a regression test suite. And he held them at bay. He did not let them go and buy a test case management tool. He said, do this in Google Sheets or Excel or whatever. Figure out how you want to manage your test cases. Figure out what a
before
test
we
case,
bring a tool in.
Yeah, go figure this out. Yeah, and
amen.
I was like, that's perfect.
Exactly.
That's it. And it was interesting because I was in the QA chapter meeting yesterday, and one of the members was like, "Can't we just buy a tool?" And one of the leaders in that room said, "No, we've been asked to operate this way, so we learn how we want to do this,
and then buy a tool.
We figure it out,
and then go get a tool that actually is sort of supports the way that you've created to work together.
Yeah,
right. That's exactly the point.
Absolutely. So we can talk about the transition that I've made over time. So at that point in time, and the role that I was in.
Can I say one thing though, real quickly? My favorite agile tool is that the Atlassian tool set is my favorite tool set.
Yeah.
Right. So I am an Atlassian fanboy to some degree. Like when I see people who slam Atlassian, like Jira and stuff, there's some agile coaches that slam it like without any context. They're like, oh, you can't be agile by using Jira. So on the flip side, I'm like, no, that's not true at all. I'm a fan of it. It's like, how do you start?
Yeah. And
what problems are you trying to solve? So I think tools, and maybe I should say this more often, I'm enamored with tools. I think tools fit, particularly in distributed teams, for gosh sakes, right? It's just like, how do you get there? Is the important.
And I think tools end up in a similar vein as Agile itself. People implement the tool poorly. They use the tools the wrong way, and it makes it difficult and challenging, and it reduces the value it can deliver because they over customize it. If I always like to use Jira basically stock out of the box.
Yep.
Just like Scrum.
Yep.
Like if you just do Scrum, it works. If you just use Jira the way it's out of the box, stock Jira, it works. If you add in a bunch of custom fields and your own rules and all these crazy roles.
And all these triggers to like remind you to talk to someone or something, right? And like all these workflows and these states and things.
So I think Jira can get a bad name because it was implemented poorly.
Yeah.
Just like Agile oftentimes gets a bad name because it's implemented poorly. It's not like Agile's not the problem. The problem is you didn't implement Agile. You're not doing Agile. Like it's hard to do Agile right when you're not even doing Agile at all.
Well, I like the example you gave of do it on paper. So I've said that same thing, like write your test cases before automation. There's, years ago, and it still happens a lot, people would, they write automated test cases before they even write like a manual test case.
Yeah.
So they're leading with code, and they end up with, hundreds or thousands of automated test cases, but they haven't thought about the design of the test cases. They haven't thought about cohesion. Haven't thought about coverage. And I'm like, don't write code, write it on paper, run it manually, get a debugged manual test case, and do. And so it's that same thing with all of it. Lead with doing and learning first, right? Learn, like, don't configure Jira the way you hypothetically think.
Yeah, right, yep.
It should work, or you're trying to control a team. Do it because now all you're doing is crafting how we're working now.
Right.
And we've done it in the simplest possible way on paper, whatever, and it works well for us. Now put it in a tool or now automate it, right?
Yep.
So that automation or that test case idea from that leader, I mean, use that mindset for everything that we're doing, right? Let's do it manually first. Let's debug it. Let's make sure we like it. It's what we want to do. It adds value for us. Then tool it.
Yeah. So I've never heard of the spine model that Scrum Sarge references. Do you know the spine model? Do I need to Google that?
You can Google it.
Well, yes, I know I can Google it. Do you know it offhand?
But I don't know the layers off the top of my head, but he's right that the spine is start with like goals and objectives and what are you trying, needs and values, rather than the tools and the techniques.
There you go. Okay.
And very often people go to the bottom of the spine, which is the easy stuff,
tools,
which is the tools and the techniques, right?
Yeah. Oh man, look at
and spine gets us. There's different metaphors out there for like metrics. There's a metrics metaphor that helps you not just define metrics, but think about what are you trying, what's the goal of the metric.
Right.
And so start at the high end, start at the why, and then move down. And that's a nice, I think the spine model is a nice metaphor or a tool for driving that thinking. But people drive to the bottom. I mean, it's human nature. I think we want easy button. You said it.
Yeah, it's the easy button.
It's the easy
button.
Well, I
mean, it's an interesting cultural phenomenon. Fast food fits in that, right? We want the easy meal.
Are we back to sandwiches and hoagies? And
we
stuff?
are back to sandwiches and hoagies.
Right.
So it's interesting because my family is going to be going through a foreign exchange program. So my daughter's going to go to Germany for 3 weeks.
Oh, cool!
And stay with a family there, and their child is going to come and stay with us for 3 weeks. So it's interesting. One of the things that the student that's coming to be with us, he wants to try American fast food. Like that's what he wants. Like that's at the top of his list. Like I want to check that off on my bucket list is having McDonald's or who knows what. Right. So that's and my wife and I were talking about it. Like, is that how we're perceived across the globe?
And that, probably
just
one
fast
of the
and easy.
What's your daughter thinking about Germany?
She's very
Schnitzel?
excited. She's very well. My wife showed her a picture of schnitzel and explained what it was, and she was like, "That sounds fantastic."
Ah, schnitzel.
So she's super excited.
That's cool.
So that's good. So
someone is going to trust. That's like a trust relationship going back and forth with the kids for 3 weeks. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's a nice cultural. Does the school they have the logistics around that? And
the school's been doing it for years, for as long as my kids have been there.
Gosh.
And the options are Japan or Germany.
Ooh,
yeah.
Both of those would be interesting.
Yeah,
I think I would go for Japan, right?
But
they're both interesting.
But this fits my daughter because it's a rural area in Germany. Like this family that she's going to live with has animals and they have land, and that's what she likes.
That's cool.
So she's very excited. Whereas my oldest son
Japan
wants to go to Japan.
Yeah,
right. Because that just fits him better.
Well, it's gaming and stuff, right?
Yeah. It just that fits his culture and the way he rolls better than it does her. So as we're wrapping up the tools, Jamie, that is 2 of my least favorite words in the lexicon of the English language.
Is what?
Gantt charts.
Gantt chart.
So as we're wrapping up the tools discussion,
I have physical scars on my back from Gantt charts.
Gosh, I've heard
show.
Stories from you about some of the things you've seen, some of the things you've done.
People shouldn't even bring that up. Everyone, please stop even using the terminology. It's cruel. It's like everyone should be penalized for bringing up Gantt chart.
Amen, Jamie. I'm glad
let's have a moment of silence as we bury them.
I am glad you wrapped that with 2 question marks. It wasn't a statement. It was a question. Yeah, Waterfall Bob did use a lot of Gantt charts.
When I moved down here, when I moved to North Carolina.
Hold on. Before you get there, queue up questions for whatever we can help you with for after Bob tells this painful story.
No, I moved down here as a director of a software engineering group, maybe real-time embedded systems. So working for Bell & Howell, mail processing equipment. That was the company that when I moved down in North Carolina in 1996, I had about 80 people to 100 people reporting to me. My stupid sort of decision was to try. There were all these projects going on. We had parallel projects up the wazoo. So I decided as a leader, how will I control my staff? And guess what I chose? What tool I used?
Microsoft Project?
Microsoft Project.
Oh, God.
And I was spending, because shit happens every day, and I'm not exaggerating, I was spending 6 to 7 hours a day updating the Gantt chart charts and not leading my team. to try to keep status so that I could sort of control the status. Not even control it, be able to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And then a mule hit me, like kicked me in the head after like 3 months, 6 months, somewhere in that range. And I had this wake up call, and I'm like, stop that!
I like that the mule kicked you.
It's insane. There's no value. There's too much change in software to use a static project planning tool. Enough of that.
So I wish I had a sad Walter, because I would have put a lot of sad Walters in the chat. So I put Walter and sad faces, because that is painful.
And I did this personally. This was me.
That's how I was raised too.
I was typing shit when I should have been leading and providing leadership and guidance and doing all kinds of other stuff. I was sitting there in front of a tube trying to manage the world.
Yeah. In a similar time frame, I worked for somebody that had grown up working for one of the big accounting firms as a project manager. And so
Scrum Sarge. Did you see that? What's that? What's up with that? He's a little.
He's on fire.
He's on fire today.
He's on fire today.
He's like,
holy crap!
He's going
hold
for
on.
it.
Hold on. Okay, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go do something. Yeah. Let me get the.
What are you gonna?
Nothing.
A mule? Is that what
worry,
you're looking
don't worry
for?
About
you're
it.
looking
Don't
for,
worry
you're looking
about
for
it.
an animal. I can tell.
Don't worry about it. I've got to find a way to like help Scrum Sarge out, because it's let's see. We're gonna Scrum Sarge. Oh, I want to gift him a subscription, but it's not available. Probably because he's already subscribed. Dang it! All right. Well, I'll find a way. Scrum Sarge.
Don't gift. You do not gift. Don't reward bad behavior.
But that's not bad behavior.
What?
Those are appropriate questions.
Oh my goodness!
That should be debated.
Come on.
Maybe that
so?
should be our podcast topic. Just saying, it's a discussion. So we are going to record a podcast after this. I'll leave that up to you guys if you want us to keep the stream on while we record. If you guys want us to do that, we'd be happy to do that. I may just leave it on just to leave it on, because why not?
Leave the stream on when we're doing what?
Yeah.
The
Metacast? We asked for questions.
Oh, okay.
And Scrum Sarge gave us a question.
All right, I'll take it.
Which is more stubborn?
Bob.
I don't think it's very close.
Come on. Yeah, okay.
you were gonna argue
I
with
was
that.
gonna argue, and then I'm like, I just succumbed to the reality of it. Right? It's like, yeah, I'm pretty stubborn.
Brave Dave, yes. Agile Josh is always wrong whenever Waterfall Bob is around.
That was one of my favorite episodes. I like that episode.
We've talked about that. That was your favorite. Yeah, because you got this license to just be an annoying jerk, and I had to defend it in a sane manner.
But I wasn't pretending. That was role-playing based on experience. I've been an ass. Right? I can let out that Tasmanian waterfall devil leader, right? I can do that. I mean, I did, and that's not pride in my voice. That's sorrow. No. That's embarrassment.
It's okay.
There's some stuff that I did as a leader, not illegal stuff, but I mean, like, no, but I mean, bringing someone, like sweating a developer in my office, one-on-one until I got the number I wanted from them.
I've been there, man.
Like sweating them out.
Yeah.
Until they were like, it's 3 weeks, and I got them down to 3 minutes, and then it's like, and then fine, great. I want it in 3 minutes.
Yeah, so like I said, I've done things like that, and I'm not proud. I think the thing that gives me solace is the fact that we dug our way out of it. We stopped.
Isn't it cool?
The
change is, if you look back and then you consider it. So I look back and I sort of share those stories to share them to help people. But the thing with me is I put that behind me. Not only wouldn't I do it now, I mean, it's not even part of who I am. So I've made a fundamental shift in like myself when it comes to leadership. I mean, there's no situation in a company that could make me do that again nowadays, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I agree. Agreed. Oh, here we go. Brave Dave's got. We can always count on Brave Dave for a good, tough question. So Brave Dave's question around: do you need a technical expertise as a Scrum Master to be effective? Is that still my stance? I don't know if that's your stance.
It's my stance. I still, I mean, I don't think it. I think technical expertise or role expertise. It's not even just technical expertise. I go back to the story we've told about you as a leader. So you're a technical leader, remember, and you were facilitating a team, and sort of your leadership role got in the way.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
In getting the team to step up.
Yeah.
And then you stepped away from that team, and their retrospectives improved. So that wasn't your technical chops that were getting in the way. It was sort of your technical role that was getting in the way. So I think it's sort of a meta case of what I think roles can get in, like roles that align with the team can get in the way. So is it a balance of, does it serve you as a Scrum Master, or is it something that actually can hurt you? I think technical chops or experience can get in the way.
Yeah.
Now, if you're an experienced Scrum Master, I think you can work your way around that. If you're an experienced leader or an experienced coach, I think you can work your way around that. But I don't think it's beyond, do I think it's necessary? So I don't know if I would hire Scrum Masters. I don't know if I'd go out there and say, I want you to be clueless. Right. Add, put an ad in the paper. I want you to be technically clueless, and that's a great Scrum Master. I don't know if I would approach it that way, but I don't know. I don't look for technical chops. I don't think it's a technical chop kind of thing. Now, I wouldn't shy away from someone.
Yeah.
I have a call later today with Chris Altman. Chris Altman was an architect in one of our teams that I contact, and I stay in touch with Chris. And Chris, great technologist, great architect, great Scrum Master actually, and he was a Scrum Master team lead in some teams, and Chris managed. It was hard for him, but he managed to balance that and effectively Scrum Master the team.
Yeah.
But it was a real tough balancing act, and he gave up the Scrum Master role. Actually, over time, he discovered his true love was the coding side, not the Scrum Master side. So he sort of reverted back, which was fine.
Yeah.
But I remember he did a great job, but it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time feeling he was pretty rare. He was a rare individual to be able to do it well.
I would if I had the option, I would probably avoid somebody with deep technical expertise, because it is difficult to shut that part of your brain off and operate in this completely different role. Like, I think about people that have tried to be product owners as well as something else, and it's hard for them to change those hats. So I don't want to ask them to do that if I don't have to. You said in talking about Chris how hard it was, like 3 times in a 2-minute span.
Yeah, it was.
It's challenging.
It's really
challenging
hard
to separate that. We
and
talked about some of the
for
lessons I
Chris.
learned.
It's challenging for the team.
Yeah.
So the team is looking to him. So when let's say your team, he was in these both roles. You had the same challenge. You were a leader. They were so in the same meeting. The team is looking to him for feedback, but depending on his role posture, he's doing his job by not providing it.
Yeah.
So there's this tension that happens, right? So it's not just a Chris thing. It's a team thing as well. Like I call it sometimes role confusion. It can create it's tension, or it can create a lot of confusion. So if you have that clarity of role, it just helps. But again, I run an experiment. There's nothing in my rule book that says a great technologist can't be a great product owner.
No,
can't be a great Scrum Master.
It's number one, it's not a requirement. I think the second thing to know is that it does make things a little bit harder. So you have to understand that it does present an additional challenge for that person and the team, as Bob mentioned. Okay, so to Scrum Sarge's question, Scrum Sarge, this came up in a couple different discussions.
This is what I was thinking. This is what I was thinking about.
So I'm glad we came full circle here, especially for Scrum Sarge, who's helped us out tremendously by being our first moderator. Thanks a million for that. So the question is, searching for a new position. There are orgs that need help tuning something that's good. So going from good to great,
Yep.
versus a transformational role. I have chosen to always go the transformational role. So I don't have really good experience going from good to great. So I don't know. I can give you my opinion and my thoughts and my fears, but I've not lived in both worlds.
But I saw a response from Eric yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and then you chimed in or something, and it resonated with me, and I didn't comment, but I want to comment now. I think, and keep me honest, but I think it's the leadership side. So I actually don't think it's the context. I think so. It could be greenfield. It could be good to great. It could be new. It
Mm-hmm.
could be old. It could be dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a leader, so when I connect to an organization, I connect to the leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and I connect to uh, their culture, their honesty, their mindset, their willingness to be open-minded, their willingness to take risks, their agileness, if you will. And as a coach or a transformationist, if I if I can connect to them, then I'll take it on. And I've had success in all of those situations. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's the leadership dynamics. And when I've not done that, like if I've ignored that, like for money, sometimes people will dangle mm-hmm. money in front of you mm-hmm. or whatever. And if I've ignored that, or if I haven't interviewed it properly, or if I haven't, so, sometimes you can meet those leaders and you can see all of these red flags, but you ignore it for whatever. So you're hopeful, it's the money, right? It's normally I see it and bad results happen. So to me, it's not the scenario, it's leadership. Mm-hmm. It's if I can connect. And I think you said that, and Eric said that.
Yeah, well, the thing that and I struggle to give advice again because I haven't been on both sides of the fence. So I'll just tell you the journey that I've been on is I found what excites me, and what excites me is that transformation. I'm a son of teachers and coaches, so that's kind of how I roll. That's what I want to do. I want to go make things better. Now, if Atlassian were to call me, or one of my top companies, there was a period where I listed like the 3 companies that I wanted to go work at.
Right.
It was Atlassian, Amazon, and Twitter, and I applied. Because I'm like, if I'm going to go somewhere, I want to go somewhere that
right.
I want to go. You
right.
know, I don't want to just settle for, hey,
right.
there's this thing close to me. Like maybe I just go find the perfect place for me that I thought in my mind was going to be that good to great bit. In the end, we didn't want to move to the West Coast, so that took it all off the table. But as I look, and as you talk about those leaders, one of the challenges that I have is in those transformational moments, they need a transformation, most likely because of the leader, right? The leader allowed it to become a specific way. And what's changed that now all of a sudden they have this need?
But it's so dynamic. It could be a new leader.
Right. So to me, I think that's where you've got to understand, and really understanding the leader, that's where, to your point, I've spent a lot more time inspecting the leaders.
Yes.
Because what I've seen is I've gotten excited about various roles, and I thought the leader was bought in and a part of it, but over time I realized they weren't, and they were being forced to go a direction.
So that's what I'm really, you and I are aligned.
Right.
I'm actually saying go with a scenario that you want, like if you want to go good to great or whatever. But what I'm saying is I'm going to success. Whatever the scenario is, don't assume the leaders are on board. Even at Amazon or at Twitter or at Atlassian, you realize that like 80% of leadership, not everyone is aligned with the founders of Atlassian.
Right.
I'm sure there's pockets of dysfunction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or there's people in Atlassian who are faking it as leaders and not walking their talk.
Yeah.
And you could, under the banner of, everyone's Atlassian is a robot. So no, talk to the leaders, align with the leaders, interrogate the leaders, and don't just talk to them. Like really sniff around their behavior. Like what language do they use? Really pay attention to, like when they answer your questions, what's their phrasing like? Are they, we talk about like being servant leader, but is their language servant leader like? Ask them for stories. Ask them, if they talk about really trusting the team, well then put them on the spot.
And And the thing you've got to do is you've got to ask the question without asking the question. Like, you can't say, tell me a story when you did this behavior I want you to do.
Yeah.
Because they likely got to that position because they can BS their way a fair
Exactly.
amount. So they'll tell you what you want to hear. So you've got to find a way to interrogate people. I think that's the right term.
Yeah.
Without telling them this is what I'm asking.
Or even ask them, what's your best trusting example? Like there's the art of the open-ended, sort of ambiguous open-ended question. And then what do they think is best? So it's the story, but it's also the context of, is that all you got? Right? That's trusting to you. That's not trusting to Josh, right? Yeah. So now there's a gap there that you've established.
Yeah. I think the big thing.
Why is Bob sniffing around people?
Yeah, you just said you were sniffing around people. So yeah.
So my ex-friend, Agile Biker, yeah.
You know, you've gotten to that same point with Agile Biker. He's now an ex-friend for you as well.
Yeah.
Gosh. Welcome, Agile Biker. Good to see you. So Scrum Sarge, I think. So I want to get back to Jamie's question, but I want to finish on Scrum Sarge. The one thing I want you to do is I want you to do something that makes you happy, right? So often, and my wife beats the crap out of me about this, right? I put everybody else in front of me, which is, I think, what helps me be a good coach. But there's times where she's like, do something for you. Find the right role for you. Maybe it's not. So Agile's not easy. Like, I think going from good to great is going to be hard.
Yep.
There's going to be plenty of challenges. Like, if we take Agile Biker, for example. So he's got things going well. They've decided as a company, we want to go Agile across the board. That's not going to be a switch you go flip and turn on and it's all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. Right? That's going to be a slog. That's going to be hard. That's going to be years worth of work. So I think getting to good is one thing, and then going from good to great is an equal challenge.
That's part of that interrogation, though, is managing goal, like level setting on goals, level setting on the horizon, level setting on the level of the challenge, right? Like in Agile Biker's case, there probably was a conversation around what does that look, you know, what does that realistically look like? So are we aligned? All of these things are the leadership alignment. Does someone, like I'll go into a client and they have a Gantt chart and they're like, you know, we have 100 teams and in 6 months we're going to be Agile because the Gantt chart says that.
Yeah.
I burst their bubble immediately. I'm like, you are the most insane person on the, I mean, I don't say it quite that way, but nearly that way. I'm like, this is the wrong way to look at it. Well, establish those same conversations, right? Of, you know, goals, objectives. So not just are we aligned in mindset, are we aligned with how hard things are, how challenging things are, etc. There was something you said that I wanted to amplify. I forgot it. I'll have to come back to it.
We all shed Agile Biker as a friend.
What is that? What it was?
Yeah, I think that's what you're really latching on to.
No.
Okay, fine.
I thought that was sort of an extreme case.
Okay.
I mean, I'll shun him for maybe a month or two.
Okay, all right, that's good. I can live with that. Yeah, that's fine. We just kind of it's a temporary ban.
A temporary ban.
Okay, so Kraz has a very specific question around this situation, and then we got to get back to Jamie. So he's asking for an example of putting a leader on the spot and the topic of them trusting. What does that conversation look like? You want to tackle that, or you want me to? I
mean, I did this. I'll try to. This is off the top of my head, but I was talking to a CEO not that long ago, and I was challenging them on CEO of a mature startup company with tremendous, a lot of investment capital and tremendous board level and investor level pressure to accelerate. And we were having a conversation, and I wanted to see what their trust level was of the team. Dates. So part of our conversation was around, team dates. And can you handle the truth from the team if the team is transparent and things like that? So I started role playing, and I pushed back. I actually, but it was funny. It was. I think he took it really seriously, And what I discovered is he didn't handle it really well.
Right.
He didn't like no. So it was no, this is not feasible.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to a conclusion, but what I discovered is a lot of intuitively, I got a really good feeling for this person doesn't handle no very well. And it was no. He was looking for data. He was looking for options, and that's all nice. But sometimes, if you can't have it, you have to be able, as a leader. I mean, I need to be willing. You know this at the dude.
Yeah.
You need to be willing to handle no.
Yeah. Well, so that's why.
And then I hit trust. I'm like, I was like, well, sometimes you have to trust me that the no.
Right. Like,
this is
like,
a no.
are you going to let me do my job?
Let me do my job.
Right.
I literally had this. This was part of the role play. It was part role play, part discussion.
Yeah.
Part interview, whatever you want to call it. And it didn't, and we didn't settle anything, but
you get a window into reality. Right?
Well, not only that, I had a perception going in that this person would be much more trusting and then going away from this conversation, I was like, aha.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's two things that I look at, or that I've learned to look at for myself, is I look at background of who the people are and how they got there, and does it align with what I am hoping to do. So if that CEO or CXO that's hiring me is a former product person, then I get a little bit more comfortable. I think, okay, they're going to understand the world I live in a little bit better. But then there's a blog article I wrote about the question that I ask people, and I ask everybody this question, and Bob did the same thing, is you create a scenario where people are doing their job,
right,
and then you disagree with them. You tell them they're wrong, and how are they going to respond? Are they going to contemplate, have a dialogue, and work with you to get an answer, or is it this reflexive that can't be the answer?
So to give a tip of the hat to you,
yeah.
What I was describing was inspired partly from exactly this. Is how is this person going to handle a contrary conversation, which is no.
Yeah.
And you can get so much input from that conversation. Like body language, nuance, conflict, aversion or not.
No, it's such a huge thing for me in my hiring process, because it tells me, because listen, anybody can be a great teammate when everything's going well. What I try and do is I try and create a scenario where it's hit the fan.
Right.
And holy crap, what are we going to do?
Right.
I want to see, is that person going to panic? Are they going to get angry?
Right.
Are they going to pause and take a deep breath, work with you, have that dialogue so the two of you can get to the best answer? Or are they just going to lash out?
Right.
And you learn a lot really quickly by doing that.
Right.
So, Kraz, that's what I would suggest doing, is creating a scenario with that person where you can, and you're going to have to, and they might nail everything right. Like, they might give you all the right answers, but you're going to have to disagree with them. You're going to have to say, no, I think that's wrong. Even if you don't think that's the right answer, but you have to create that tension and figure out what it looks like.
Right. The other thing I would say when you're doing what Josh and I are talking about, really put up your radar for effective listening, like active listening. So not just listen to the words, but watch their facial expressions, listen to their nuance, their body language, because you're going to get a lot of things, and you're even listening for what they don't say, right? So, and you can get a lot of information in that. The other final point I would make is don't overreact. Don't walk out of that conversation and immediately come to a conclusion. I would replay. I would actually replay how you. So it's not just them. It's how you brought yourself to bear, how they reacted to that, and then sort of replay it a few times. So I wouldn't say, come out of it and, oh, they're good, and or I'll take the role or I won't take the role. I would replay the video a few times and really sort of be thoughtful about it.
But it's an informative moment.
Well, and you know what? It's the reality. So the person I was talking about, there was, lots of Agile experience, but I mean, I was surprised, right? I was surprised at the gaps that I uncovered. Does that mean that, and they're coachable gaps. So it gave me so many insights, and a lot of them were unexpected. A lot of them were things that, I assumed that, this wouldn't be a problem or this wouldn't be a challenge. And I discovered a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get back to Jamie asked a question. No, I've never had anybody ask to record an interview so
No,
they can rewatch it.
never.
I've never had that. I don't know what I would say.
I would probably say no. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, before I say no, I'd be like, what's your
Yeah.
what's your point? What's your driving? What's your goal in doing that?
Yeah.
But no, that's actually an interesting question. No, never.
So back to Jamie from a while back. As Bob recently mentioned, coaches who are in the top 10% of the community. How do I measure my current percentage? How do I level up?
Who asked that?
Agile Jamie. So this, I think this was in a newsletter Bob sent out, kind of kicking off the year, and you were talking about partners and who you partner with.
I was talking about voices.
Yeah.
I was talking about voices. I mean, I'd actually don't get caught up in the 10%. So, if it's the blog post that I'm thinking of, I was talking about voices to trust. So let me like quickly look. So give me some time, Josh.
But I think that's so peel back that initial 10%. Forget the 10% number, and let's talk about how do you measure up? How do you grow? How do you get better? What are the things that you do? How do you tackle that? I think that's an interesting question about how do I know if I'm good? How do I know I'm getting better? How can I get better? All of those things. I think that's an interesting question to figure out around how can I just keep getting, because we all want to get better, right? That's just this
I know
human
I know it was in my
intuition.
newsletter,
Yeah.
so it's not. So I still think my reaction is the same. I don't think it's the top. So I'll use this as a backdrop. I did something. I did a blog post called Agile Voices, Competing Agile Voices,
Mm-hmm.
and the driver from this was like what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We're a voice, right? This stream is a voice. The Metacast is
Yep.
a voice. If you look out in the community now, podcasts, blog posts are voices.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
What's happening is there's so many voices that I was talking to this one young agilist,
Mm-hmm.
and she just made the point in email or something like this. Thank you for your voice. There's so much out there. I get confused sometimes, and I'm like, you're right. So how do you determine what the voices are? And in this one, I was saying, so agile voices, determination factors. I put things like experience, other voices referencing your ideas, endurance, are they giving back, certifications, branding, walking the talk, humility,
Mm-hmm.
do they share their failures, are they interested in the money or not? So I think that top 10% are folks that are, you can pick some of these factors,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, are you given to me? And top 10% is, do you walk your talk?
Right.
Right? Are you writing? Are you sharing in the community? Now, someone could disagree with me and say, well, that's not a top 10% factor. That's fine. I think it is.
Yeah.
I talked about other factors. Do they pass the smell test? Do they apply common sense? Do they apply agile principles in their life? Do they experiment? And then ask another voice.
Yeah.
Right? So you and I are part of the Metacast is self-respecting.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I listed you here. I said exemplars. I said colleagues I trust. Josh Anderson, Ryan Ripley, Leon Sabarsky, Corey Bryant.
He required me to write a large check to be on that list.
No. These are people. So I think it's the top 10%. In essence, is sort of people who are true to their essence,
Mm-hmm.
really walk their talk, really are experiential. Will have these hard. They're not chasing money. For me, one of the top. I don't chase money in my practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to be a principled coach. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I really try to embolden. Right, I try to. I mentor people, etc. I try to practice what I preach. I almost get emotional about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people out there that are just coaches to
Yeah.
chase the dollar.
Yeah.
So that's what I say when I say top 10%. Part of it is experience, but it's it's a much more broader view than that, I think.
Yeah, so Scrum Sarge is asking you to copy that link and post it in the chat. So if you could do that, that would help him out. So brand, I think, is something I think it's worth thinking about because brand is an interesting thing. Like this is something that Bob and I talked about. I think we even did a episode on the Metacast about this, about building your brand. And I when I moved here from Ohio, no one knew who I was. So I felt this requirement to build a brand about me, and who I was, and start to get a narrative of who this Josh character was,
Right.
and that I actually knew what I was talking about. And
Right.
that takes time, effort, and energy. And most importantly, I believe it goes back to, you've got to walk your walk, right? Like you can't, like people will read through that very quickly. So to me, it's always been focus on being very consistent and actually doing what I say. That's been the only way that I've found to get there. But it just, I don't know. It's tough because I feel like it's just consistent effort over time.
Well, it's also what you aren't. When you said your brand, so branding, so, and again, it's not the 10%, so don't get caught up on 10% and 90%. But to me, people that I respect and that I would recommend are folks who know what they're good at and who know what they're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so this is my brand and this is not my brand. They don't fake it.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm chasing the dollars, I fake stuff. Like agile hardware coaching, right? I've actually done embedded, and I'm still weak in that area, but I've done embedded systems development. I've done hardware. I understand hardware engineering, etc. So I have a leg up in that space, and so I can coach a little bit in that space. But someone would say no. Like if I'm weak in an area, someone would have the courage to say no.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, go talk to Josh Anderson. And I've done this stuff with you,
Yeah.
right? It's like, no, I've actually, I think, put work to you. I've had a generational, like I've said, I'm probably not the right coach for them
Mm-hmm.
because I'm older, and I'm not kidding now. I'm
Right.
generationally, I think someone who's generationally closer to them would have a better connection to
Right.
them. And it's like, so it's not just saying what you can do, it's being congruent and understanding what you can do, and just having the honesty and the integrity to do that.
Yeah. So, Jamie,
And you know what, guys, in the newsletter, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I hope that didn't come off pretentiously. I didn't mean it that way. Like, it's the numbers. I don't know. I actually don't care what my percentage is. I just care that I walk effectively. So I don't know if I'm a top 10% coach.
right. But so I agree with you. I'm peeling all that back. We all want to be better. So I'm trying to find some nugget to give Jamie and everybody else in chat of like, how do I know I'm getting better? As I think back, what I go back to, man, the X-Wing again, that was a cool learning for me on Tuesday. So I think that X-Wing is a really great model. Is if you look at that and do you feel like you're progressing in all of those different ways? So in those chats that I've had with Agile Biker, and he's pushing me, and he's saying, hey, how are you going to measure that experiment? How are you going to know it worked? And there's times where around that X-Wing, I don't know how to answer that other than,
What the hell is X-Wing?
it's a coaching model.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is there a link? Can someone put a link in there?
Yeah, we'll get it. I
don't know what you guys are I
it
haven't
was,
streamed
it.
enough.
Was brand new to me.
Who brought it up?
I think it was Scrum Sarge.
Was it Sarge?
Yeah.
He has way too much time to think about stuff, man.
So what I look at is sprint over sprint. Do I feel like I've been a better coach? Have I coached and helped teams in different ways than I've ever done before? Those are the things that, as I just try and build experiences, have I just been doing the same thing over and over again, or have I been expanding my skill set by doing and trying different things, by maybe taking an experiment and working with a hardware team, or I did a coaching gig for a marketing company, and that was interesting, right? I had never coached a marketing team, but I boil it down to, we're just moving work from left to right. We're ranking it from top to bottom, and then we're moving it from the top from left to right. And that's really all it boils down to. That doesn't say anything about software. It's just work. We all have work to do. Yeah. So let's figure that out and let's work our way through that. So that's the only thing I can give is, are you expanding your experiences? That's how I feel like I've expanded the tool belt. That's how I feel like I can help
I know
with
what
more
this is.
questions.
I know what this, okay, I never heard it called X-Wing.
Oh, it's an X-Wing. Look at it.
Okay. No, I've caught up.
Okay, good.
It's actually the Agile Coaching Competency Framework.
Yeah, I know. The ACCF.
AKA X-Wing.
X-Wing, yeah.
Is that a Star Wars reference?
Yes, Bob. It's a Star Wars reference.
That makes me so happy.
I'm just glad it's not a Star Trek reference.
Tomato.
Oh, I thought you were a super Star Trek guy.
I like both of them.
Okay. You're equal opportunity.
I mean, I was
boy?
young, right? First Star Wars, 1977. I was in the army.
You weren't young. I was young.
What, 1977? I was 21, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Was I 21?
Yeah.
Yes, I was 21. What time? How old were you in 1977? Two. Really?
Yeah.
I should have expected that answer. I should have gotten like a half or something like that.
Yeah. No, it was, but that shaped my life. Like the whole Star Wars thing blew up right when I was that super impressionable, you know, 2 to 7 year old, and that was a game changer for me. Right, it introduced me into all these different things. So, yeah. Well, Jamie, that's something that I've been wrestling with, is trying to find a way for this channel, this community, to be a mentor for people, because I just see so many different people wrestling with finding good mentors in this space that I'm hopeful to find. Bob, you should really hit that close ad button. You get a lot more room in the chat.
Oh, you're such...
I'm trying to help you. Look at that. You can see more than one
I've been
item.
dealing with that crap for like the entire...
for the last hour.
Yeah. Is that X?
Yeah,
X-Wing. You hit the little X-Wing.
It's a common UI pattern that X closes things.
You know, that just burst my little bubble that I was getting ahead of the technology curve there. You know that?
Oh,
because I was like looking at that and I'm like, crap, I've only got this much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's what I'm aspirationally, I'm hopeful that we can transform this Twitch stream into what I'm trying to label it as a mentor as a service. That, hey, maybe where I live, there's not a ton of great mentors that I can go out to lunch with, and pick their brain and ask a few questions. Like I'm blessed, right? Bob landed in my lap. I didn't go make that happen.
Thank you,
that
Josh.
just happened, right? And I've been lucky enough.
It was like the Christmas present.
Yeah,
that never. I'm thinking of a metaphor here, but it failed.
But it was one of those things where it just happened, and I know I'm lucky. It is very romantic. Thank you, Brave Dave. But that just happened, and not everybody's going to be blessed to have that magic moment just appear where, hey, here's this person that can mentor you for the next decade and beyond.
There was a what's it called? Slack. There was a Slack channel or something that you invited me to.
Yeah.
And mentoring came up, and I meant what my response was, just to ask people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm right now mentoring. I'm probably mentoring 3 people for their CEC, CTC, the coaching certs with the Scrum Alliance. I'm mentoring a couple people just for Agile, just in general, just mentoring. I'm probably mentoring. I have a whip limit of like 5 or 6 people that I mentor at a time. It's very informal. Some of them just poop out. You know, they get infrequently. But I guess my point is, it starts with just asking. And mentoring is different from these Twitch streams. or from podcasts or anything. It's very personal to me.
Okay.
It's very one-on-one. So it's not Slack. Again, it could be Slack, but to me, it's it's the intimacy of that one-on-one. It's a one-on-one coaching, mentoring relationship where you can really get down to say things that you wouldn't normally say in the stream, etc. You can challenge each other. Sometimes I'll challenge people in a mentoring relationship. I'd never quit on someone, but I would if they weren't doing their part.
Yeah.
Part of it, it's not just one way. It's that it's this two-way thing.
Yeah.
But I think that all I'm saying, I guess it's not an answer, but I mean, some of these people should reach out to you and say, Josh, could you mentor me?
Well, and that's the thing, right? And again, I always go to a product, right? Like that's how my brain works. We've discovered that over the past however many years. Is I see this problem, this recurring issue of person after person has been asking, how do I find a mentor? What can I do? Who do I talk to? How do I make it happen?
Clearinghouse. So I volunteer to mentor people for speaking, and I'd have to dig up what it is, but I think it's mostly females. It's like a women. It's helping mentor women to do technical public speaking. I forget the name of the blog site or something, like Women Who Test or something. And I volunteered, and they tagged me up with someone. So it's just all they do is they have a repository of mentors, and they publicize that, and they connect people. And then it becomes personal, the way I talked about. They actually put it back. Now, having that clearinghouse and making it visible enough so that enough people are volunteering to be mentors, and enough people are aware that need mentoring, that would be an interesting product. But I don't think you give them mentoring tools. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's no checklist or anything like that.
No, I'm again, what I see in my brain is a place where I can come, I can ask general questions, I can see who responds in ways that aligns with me, that maybe says the things I need to hear. Then I'm enabled and empowered to reach out to them and build that connection.
So maybe there's a style portal or something. But what I'm trying to communicate is it's a personal thing. It's also contractual. Like when I start, it's not paper contract, but I usually start out with, don't waste my time. Like, what are your goals? I want someone to articulate their goals. Very often I ask them to put a personal roadmap together. What are you trying to become? Like a mind map. So I'm looking for them to do some work. So there's some work. There's an agreement. We're going to meet once a month, right? You would reach out to me and schedule it or whatever. So there's a little bit of a sort of contractual goals, objectives. There's a personalized nature to it, if you will. I like your idea, though, of, it's not just finding a mentor, the right mentor for me. Yeah. But I'm separating the acquisition from the mentoring itself. I think there's a more private relationship to that.
I get it, right? And I get that it may be uncomfortable to ask or pose those questions in a public forum like this Twitch channel.
The other thing is people can try it out and just stop. Yeah. It's like I get no value. I don't put a notch in my chain with how many people I'm mentoring. So if you ask me to mentor and then after one session you're like, that wasn't, I'm done. I'm like, I'm fine with that, right? Or if we did 6, or with you and I, it's like 8 years later or something like that, and it's not even truly mentoring, but so you can just try people out as well. Yeah. But I'm rambling about it, but I think that's an important. There's this dilemma of how to connect people, and a lot of people, and if we could help with that. But the other part of it is I don't think people reach out. They're very reluctant to reach out and say, here, can you help me? Yeah.
Like Mr. Wilkins, he asked. Be happy to help. Right? And we've gone back and forth on a couple things. Best chance is on Discord, because I always go there first, right? Because that's an extension of this channel. So reach out in Discord, just a direct message there.
Or I could see, I mean, I've looked at, Eric, for example, and I've thought about talking at the risk of his head getting bigger.
He's not here, so he'll never know. It's all right.
Is he not here?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I mean, I've not sort of long-term mentoring, but one of the things I value in our relationship is I think it's 360, right? We're helping each other. It's sounding board.
Yeah.
And as I get more experience, so it's not just a newbie problem. As you get more experienced, it's hard to find people who are willing.
Yeah, it becomes a bit more lonely.
Yeah, it can become very lonely. And so it's mentoring at all, at all levels. And it's sort of two-way relationships.
I gotcha. Okay.
Are you gonna mentor?
Yes. Thank you for clarifying real world names with Twitch usernames. So that's something that's a mistake that I've made in the past. Is I've referred to people as using their real world name, and no one else in chat knows their actual name. So Agile Biker is Eric. We had TJ that was in chat a while ago.
Oh,
he
sorry
was
about that.
Yep. So I catch myself all the time doing that as I see that name and I translate that in my head, but I'm not there. So yeah, so Mr. Wilkins, and again,
reach out.
I only refer to him in that manner because, as far as I'm concerned, he's related to one of my favorite basketball players ever, Dominique Wilkins. He's never told me he isn't.
The Neek.
The human highlight film. Yeah, he was my favorite. So I always refer to Mr. Wilkins with reverence. Because of that. So yeah, again, this is why we're here. I just want to add value. I want to help. So reach out in Discord and we'll make it happen. So I'm at the point where we've been going for 70-ish minutes or so.
Oh my goodness, we're over.
Well, that's okay.
Did we want to switch into Metacast mode?
Yeah, so for everybody here, we're gonna flip and record a Metacast episode. I'm going to keep the cameras and mics on. You can hang out. You can not. It's up to you. We're just going to do our thing.
All right, let's go.
So, yeah. So, let me open up all my other stuff.
Do we have a topic for the Metacast?
Oh, and here the curtain is pulled back. And this is always the first discussion that we have. Like, what are we going to talk about?
What are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
Do you have anything in mind?
I've got, let me get the audio all set up, and then
that's fine.
And then I will be ready to go. So
I have ideas that I jotted down. I don't know if they're still good ideas. There's some ideas. They were old.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into Discord. There've been a couple things posted there.
Oh, cool. If you can mine anything from anyone, I'm up for anything.
Oh, I can mine things from people. That's for sure. Okay. Let me make sure we've got the right mics rolling here. Okay.
You want to do a test?
No, I
testing 1 2 3.
Well, you can't do a test and get so close to the microphone. Like you always,
I'm like scolding.
You always do a test from right here,
yeah.
And then in the
then
recording you're back here. Like,
back.
well, that test didn't do us any good.
I know.
But I've got this new feature, automatic level control, so we can roll with that.
We can auto level.
Yeah, we can let it do the work for us, which is fantastic. Okay, so we've got the right inputs going. I hit the record button, so let me pop open. Let's see.
You have become like the technician, the maestro.
I've become the technician?
You've grown. You are like the maestro of technology. The boss with the hot sauce.
Oh, dang. Look at Scrum Sarge with a marker on the stream. Jeez, gosh. Man, he's so good. Yeah, so I put a marker on the stream. Did that. Thank you for reminding me. Large wedge labeled Lean Agile Practitioner. What is it? Yeah, this was a discussion point that you brought up on Tuesday, Sarge. So looking at the X-Wing, there's a large wedge that is labeled Lean Agile Practitioner. What does that mean to you? What lives in that wedge? Sorry for breaking your ears, Mr. Wilkins. That was Bob and his sound test. Always Always shocking. Okay, let's see. Another podcast. So here's from Lori. So on the 29th, she posted a couple of options.
Okay.
So the Waterfall Bob, we've got to do some more role playing. So we've got to do some of that. We've got to prep for that. So, Lori, here's a couple questions. Has there been a Metacast episode yet that focused on the use of storytelling to get your point across to peers, leaders, and other stakeholders in the organization? If not, that may be a good topic, including how to pick the topic for the storytelling, how to develop the theme story.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's good.
I like that one.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't like it as much, so I might have to ride your coattails as usual. Okay, so here's another one.
You tell stories though.
I know, but I don't that.
You don't
like,
plan them.
Yeah, but like that grabbed you. I've got to think more about how I handle that. So, and then there's another one. What type of influence does each role need to have on the others in an agile organization? Developers on Scrum Masters on product owners on senior leaders. Oh gosh, I got to think about that one more.
Oh, that's interesting too. So that's roles and
that's how the roles interact with each other.
So that to me is roles and responsibilities, but the interaction points.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people look at roles and responsibilities as being just the roles.
Mm-hmm.
What's much more interesting to me is the interactions and telling stories about.
Well, let's go with the stories because you've got.
No. I'm just.
Let's go with because you've got you're, as you would say, you're perky, right? You're
perky about. You want to go with that?
You always go to that. So let's do that. All right, are you ready? Can you just make sure you have a consistent distance from the microphone?
I will endeavor. I will try.
Do or do not?
I will do. Do.
Good. Okay. Ready? Welcome to the Metacast. I'm Josh Anderson.
I'm Bob Galen. Hey, everyone.
He's fired up.
How y'all doing?
Yeah. Oh, you brought the yawl back. Like, you hit him with the yawl pretty early.
Yeah. I don't have much energy. I mean, the cold. I have a cold, and we just did a stream. So I'm getting my energy out. So
I've got a monster. Would you like a monster?
No,
you want to crack that open and
no.
Fire it up?
No.
Oh, no. It would help you with energy. Okay, so we've got a question from a
listener
from a listener
in Boise, Idaho.
No. She's in Ohio. She spent the holidays in Michigan. She's in our Twitch stream all the time.
Oh,
heavy contributor there in chat.
Let's go for it.
In Discord, so she's there. She asked us about storytelling.
Yep.
And how that plays and how you can use that to influence the world around you as an agile coach.
You'll have to carry this one, Josh, because I really don't have a lot.
Don't you start with me. We already talked pre-recording that you've got more passion about this than I do. So here I'm going to lay it out for everybody. Has there been a Metacast episode yet that is focused on the use of storytelling to get your point across to peers, leaders, or other stakeholders in the organization? That may be a good topic. So as I read that to Bob went, "Ooh, that's good."
So I'll start this way, but I want you to chime in. So I do this certified agile leadership class, and it's a 2 or 2.5 day class. It's Scrum Alliance certified. It's targeted towards leaders, agile leaders, so senior leaders. Sometimes I do it to an entire leadership team. Very often I prefer to do that. There's a top 10 set of things. So there's learning objectives with the CAL from the Scrum Alliance. And as an instructor, I look at them and I'm like, I try to cover them, but then they give every instructor customizes the course to themselves. So I look at like, what are my top 10 things?
Right.
So leadership storytelling is in my top 10. And we actually, So one of the exercises we have very early in the class actually is, what is your why?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is your, I want you to be able as a leader, and I asked every leader to work in small groups and to
Right.
share. So what is your why? Like, why are you going agile? Not why are you in the class,
Mm-hmm.
but why? What is your organizational why? So what's the story at the top level?
Okay.
What's your, what's your story for the people reporting to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then what is your personal why? Like, why the heck do you support it?
Yeah.
And then I want to practice, like, actually, so think of it as elevator pitches.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things, it's not just storytelling, but I think as coaches we need to be able to articulate our whys,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not personally, and it starts personal. So it doesn't start organizationally. So you can have an organizational why, but if you're like, if you have
If
no,
you don't connect.
if you don't connect,
Yeah.
if you
Right.
don't care, well then you're just slapping your gums together up there. So I want to sort of have people to articulate that. The personal why is usually very personal. My personal why is, I have cases where I've seen it. I've behaved badly as a manager,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
I'm honestly embarrassed by it. And then I've converted myself or changed. And I have cases where my personal agile why right now is, I've seen it work.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it create better ecosystems for getting shit done, but also for creating an ecosystem for that where teams have fun.
Mm-hmm.
So you have happy customers, you have happy stakeholders, you have happy teams.
Yeah.
And doing that well and trusting and getting this, sort of the relationships, the ecosystem well, and leaders play an important part of that. So one of my personal whys is, I've actually had the honor, the audacity, the privilege to see that work, and that motivates me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do that again if I can. I
Yeah.
want to influence that, and then I've also had the pain, and I talk about that. So I don't know if you can. I don't know what format you can communicate that to people other than storytelling. So I think the notion of storytelling, fast forward 30 years from now to 30 years from now, I think one of the fundamental paradigms for people, for leaders, is to communicate effectively is the art of story.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs is. I play some videos in the class of Steve Jobs. I don't know if you've seen it. He did the Stanford University graduation. He did about a 15-minute
Mm.
sort of. He talks about himself.
Yeah.
So, and it's a wonderful example of, to me, of storytelling. He tells 3 stories at the commencement at Stanford, and they're pretty darn compelling, and you can learn from it. Like, one of the examples of storytelling is personalizing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not telling a story like from a, sort of a Donald Trump. I don't mean to be, no, but sometimes politicians, they're telling these, they're pompous, or
Mm-hmm.
they're telling Steve Jobs, he made it personal. He talked about, like, he was at a commencement, his first story, and I remember, so I'm remembering this,
Right.
and I haven't seen the video hundreds of times, but he talks about, he went to, he actually dropped out of a university.
Mm-hmm.
So it was sort of, he's at a commencement
He's
speech
like, why
at
am
one
I
of
here?
the most prestigious
Yeah.
universities on the planet,
Yeah.
literally, and he starts telling the story of, I couldn't cut it, but then he wrapped it in. He told how that connected him to graphic artist or calligraphy,
Mm-hmm.
and how that influenced the Mac later on. So he drew this wonderful connection in story or prose.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a wonderfully effective. I think that's an effective metaphor, an effective mechanism for leaders to connect to people and to inspire them.
I just think,
And I rambled there to maybe inspire you.
well, and you did, and I just was thinking about stories, and I've got young kids, and right out of the gate, everything is taught with stories.
yeah,
Right? There are books that teach kids lessons. You go back to Sesame Street, right? Sesame Street doesn't sit down and say, we're going to teach you about trust today. They have stories, and they take you through with their characters where they make mistakes, they stub their toe, and they're forgiven, and their friends trust them and they help them. So there's, from birth, almost, our culture delivers lessons and learning with stories. I think about reading a business book. Do you want a book that reads like a textbook that just gives you a list of 12 things to do and there's no story behind it? People draw those connections from those stories where they can begin to assimilate that in their mind and associate it with themselves. They can start to connect the dots, and just the culture of who we are. You look at movies and TV and books and podcasts and everything else that's out there, it's all telling a story. Like, nobody just wants to be talked at.
Right.
It's the human condition of how we learn, I think. So to your point, I don't know how you become a good leader without the capability to tell stories.
I don't think you're inherently, I'm with you from childhood and etc.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're good storytellers if we don't practice it. It's like writing. I remember when I wrote my first book, one of my motivations for it is I sucked as a writer, as a business writer or as a writer in general. So I have a tendency to want to challenge myself to get better. So I think, I don't know if we are inherently, like Steve Jobs, is rare to me, but I think we can get better if we practice it a lot. So that's sort of the motivation of, okay, we want to be a more effective communicator. So, and then what's the vehicle for that? And to your point, it's not PowerPoint, it's not bulleted lists, it's not mission vision or something. It's not esoteric. It's this sort of I've done some presentations around storytelling, and I bring up songs. I don't know if you like some artists. Elton John for me has told stories. Who else has Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young has told stories. Jim Croce, if you've ever heard of
Ice Cube for me.
Ice Cube. Okay.
I'm not kidding.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll take that.
Yeah.
So people in song who've been able to paint a picture. What's the guy's name? Dylan. Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan for me. When some of his songs come on, I mean, so part of storytelling to me is the imagery that you get, right? You're not just saying words, you're painting. It's almost like a mental tapestry of you're painting a picture for folks to really connect to. And I think as leaders, you don't become a Bob Dylan. The goal is not to become a Bob Dylan, but the goal is can I get better and better over time? And I think you just start telling stories.
Yeah, to me, now there's things that I've done to study. So there was a period in time where I was working pretty heavily on my creative writing. I took some classes in college. In a previous Twitch stream, we talked about some of the classes I took in college to get my GPA up.
Yep.
One of them was creative writing. It did not help my GPA,
right?
Because I was not good.
Right.
So I learned pretty early that I wasn't that good, and after college, I spent more time working on it. I met folks like you that wrote books, that wrote blogs, and I tried, but I was never happy with it. So I went and I invested, and there's a book by Stephen King called On Writing.
Okay.
And it's interesting because that book is a story, but it teaches you about writing.
Okay.
So so he illustrates exactly what we're talking about, where I learned a ton of how to write better, but it was mostly with Stephen King telling the story of how he became a writer.
Yep.
And that book, more than any of the other more textbooky type books, that connects with me and lives with me in my brain whenever I'm writing or even when I'm talking.
Right.
It has shaped how I communicate, and it was a story.
Yep.
And that really personifies, I think, what we're talking about. But the only way, just like we've talked about a million times, is you just have to do it.
Now there's in my class, I don't do it in each class, and I actually have a recording, I think, somewhere of someone who did it. But I asked people to tell the story in front of the class, and then the class critiques them in a safe environment where you're getting honest feedback. So part of practice is just telling stories. Another part of improvement is if you don't get any feedback, you're making the continual mistakes.
You're
and
just
stuff.
wandering.
So we were giving that, and it was really useful to have people because not only are the folks who are listening to the story critiquing it, but they're learning themselves. Yeah. Right. So it's the value is going both ways.
Yeah.
and I thought that was valuable. Now it takes a lot of time to do that. So one of the reasons I don't always do it is storytelling preparation. Then in a class of, if you have a class of 20 people, 20 people telling stories can take up a couple hours of time and critiquing. So I'm not always willing to make that. But there are some people in executives or leaders, there are leadership seminars where that's actually what they focus on, communication. They'll spend a day videotaping and critiquing each other with things like that. So you can actually take it up a level.
Right.
But it's all that storytelling. Some of the aspects of storytelling, let's talk about, like, what are some of the things? Make it personal.
Yeah.
Personalize it would be something. There's the Oreo cookie model of tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. It's a very it is simple, but it's still a very useful metaphor. What else? Any critical?
So one of the best things that happened to me was my first national conference I was going to speak at. I happened to be working with somebody who was my peer. They were the VP of product, and I was excited and nervous about this opportunity to go speak. So I wanted it to be really good. And this person had been through Toastmasters. So he made me get up and present in front of him. And he didn't rip me to shreds, but he ripped the approach I took to shreds. And his point was, this isn't a story. This is just jumbled up thoughts that add value. But if you can take someone through a journey, then you're in good shape. And so that's where that was one of those kind of wake up moments for me where I had to learn how to paint that picture for somebody and not just talk at them and not just say, hey, this is what you need to know, but to connect the dots for them and help them understand that there's a path, there's a way for them to figure this out, and not just talk at them. That was the big thing for me, but it wasn't easy. I had to receive and hear that feedback, and I had to internalize. It took me probably a day or so to rework the entire presentation and bring it back and put it in front of him and say, hey, now is this better? Do you hear a story? So I had to think about, how do I transform these words into a story that was a beginning, a middle, and an end of, hey, here's the problem.
Right.
Here's the turmoil, the drama that we went through to try and figure that out. And here's how it worked in the end. Right. And here's the lessons learned. I didn't just line things up in basic storytelling. Like, here's the problem.
So you don't wing it. Yeah. I mean, one of the things not to do is don't try to wing it. So you prepare your stories. One of the things I do in the class, and I'm not trying to make this about the cow class, but I give people a journal, and I hope that leaders do journaling. And one of the valuable aspects, so I don't think stories pop out of, like, you're in front of your 100 people in your team, and you want to communicate something, and a story pops up into your head, a complete story, and you can tell it. I don't even think Steve Jobs would do that, right? No matter how good you are. So I think you have to mine your day-to-day activity. You have to mine your past. You have to mine previous companies. You have to mine for stories. Like, when I tell stories, if you hang out with me long enough, you've heard this in the Metacast, I've told some of the same stories. I may use them in different ways, but they're mind stories. I may twist them, but I prepare them. I have in the back of my head, I have a story repository, and I'm trying to communicate. It's not telling the stories, it's what am I trying to communicate? What point am I trying to get across? So I think you have to start creating that repository, and journaling is a way to do that. And then once you have a story hook, then it's beginning, end, right? Beginning, middle, end. And then practice it, and then start communicating that. And then there may be variations depending on what you're trying to communicate.
How much of the story do you prepare in advance? Like, I'll tell you what I do is, oftentimes when I'm having a large team gathering and I'm trying to relay something, I find a story and I work it through in my brain, but I don't have every sentence or everything lined up.
No.
I've got the problem, the solution, and the end, and I fill in the gaps.
I do the
as
same.
I go.
I do exactly the same thing. But
Yeah.
you have to have that, and that I may even replace a middle because this situation is different.
Yeah.
So I'll put another middle in. Not that I'm sort of lying about the story, but it's the point. So I think storytelling has a goal, right? You have a communication goal. You have a communication intent. It's not a PowerPoint. You're actually trying, one of the aspects of, I think, good storytelling is you don't want to tell them what to think. You want them to come to their own conclusion at the end of the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's
the show don't tell, right? So
Right.
that was a huge thing from that Stephen King book,
Right.
was show don't tell, and I was terrible at it. So
Right.
the same thing with that conference talk that I gave. I
Right.
was telling. It was tell.
Right.
I didn't show my experience. I didn't show our journey.
Right.
I didn't let them build their own narrative of what it was.
Exactly. So that's part you're now again you're getting them close,
Right.
from a that perspective, but you're not necessarily, so you're allowing space for them to conclude. In my coaching, sometimes I do something like this. I don't know if it's a story per se, but if people, they ask me, they'll bring an idea. A lot of times as a coach, and I'll have this response to say, I've tried that 100 times, and I've only seen it work. So, not only have I tried it, I've seen clients try it. So literally, and trust me, I'm not making this up. Out of 100 attempts, I've seen two times has it worked. Let me tell you a story about the 98 where it fails because of this and this, and then the success story is this. So I might give them, and so not all stories are sunny day stories. I think actually the more powerful stories are, for me personally, failure stories. I can, sometimes with a client, it's like, tell me something that you haven't done well. Okay, I have.
Right.
Trust me, I have some failure stories. Let me share with you a failure story, and then let me share with you how I recovered from that failure, how we recovered from that failure story. So you're giving folks like ends. So I'm not saying do this. I'm not saying do this. I'm giving folks the odds, and it's like, hey, choose. If you take the 2 case, it's risky. If you take the 98 case,
right,
maybe you modify that. But I'm not telling you what to do.
One of the things it's one of those winning moments for me whenever I coach. And it's funny because I'll go home and I'll tell my wife, I say, hey, guess what happened today? So-and-so decided to do X, Y, and Z. She's like, oh, they finally listened to you. You've been trying to get them to do that for 6 months,
right,
or whatever the time period is. But it's one of those things where if I go in and tell them, do this way, they're going to do it because I asked them or tell them to do it, but they aren't going to believe in it.
Right.
So I always play the longer game with, I want them to discover the answer on their own, be it even at the board level. So there's board level stuff that I've done where I come home and like, hey, it finally happened. Like they finally decided to do this. And it wasn't my idea. She's like, but it was your idea. You don't get the credit. I'm like, I'm not here for the credit. Right. What I know is that I was able to successfully transform that whatever in a specific way. And they discovered it on their own. So now it's their idea. They're bought in. They're all over it. Now they want to help it succeed. It's just not this other guy out here pushing them to operate differently. So and you don't do that without stories.
Exactly.
You have to plant those seeds, tell those stories, get their minds thinking about it.
But now you have a new story in your journal, because you can tell that story to another team or to another client.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or another group or another organization in your current company. And you can tell that story. It could be a story of success, of failure, of recovery, of whatever. And now, I mean, you don't have to, but we should share that story. I would always be talking about other teams or a Scrum Master. Maureen Green was a Scrum Master, one of our more experienced Scrum Masters at Eye Contact. And she had a wonderful rapport. And she had a wonderful demeanor. She was much better at trust than I was. And I would use Maureen Green's stories, not to embarrass her or whatever. And I wasn't putting her up on a pedestal. These were just stories. And it's like, Maureen, I jumped to the gun too fast. And you can, in a story, be self-deprecating. I mean, stories can have these multiple facets.
Right.
You're talking about behavior. You can be self-deprecating. You can be talking about the vision, where we want the culture to go, all in one story, and just share that story. Now, I think a danger is we become like Johnny Appleseed. You don't want to become.
Yeah.
You've gotta. You don't want the organization. Oh, here comes Bob. Crap. We have to like pause, turn our phones on pause because he's going to be telling us stories for 45
But that
minutes.
doesn't happen if your content is real.
Right.
Like you talked about politicians, right? There's so many times where they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And it's clear, so then you just shut your brain off.
Right.
But when somebody you trust that has experience is talking, people sit up and listen. Right. Now, it can't, to your point, it can't be this like, I'm going to drone on for the next 3 days about the same thing. Right. You've got to have that, not just consistency, but diversity in the stories that you're telling. Absolutely. Otherwise, it just becomes redundant. Like there was a CEO that I worked for that there was one story that was told over and over again. And it was always new to the new people, but the people that had been like, yeah, okay, we've heard this story. So they just shut off.
Yep.
So in company meetings, 70-80% of the company just shut off because it's like, oh, here's that story again.
So you got it. This is where I think of it as mining for stories. And you have to be an observer. So it's not just taking notes. It's observing like fresh eyes, observing the land. And this is cool in Agile. So this is where I think storytelling in Agile is so relevant because stuff is happening around us. We're running experiments. We're sprinting. We're learning things. We have newbies. We have people leaving, coming and going. All of this stuff. You're observing. If you look on the other side of the window, you're observing what's going on. Now you have to pay attention and you can mine it for stories. You said something. I was in a conference once teaching. So the reason I get perky about this is because I've had some talks around it. I've incorporated it in the Cal. Someone in a conference, I'll never forget, they asked a question. It's like, do the stories have to be true? And I never forget this. And I paused. So very, very rarely do I get speechless. But I was like,
yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
But I was like, 20 seconds later, I'm like, yeah, I said, I think, at least for me, I can't tell you. So you can tell a BS story if you want. But for me, if I start making stuff up, I forget the stories. So people will call me on it, right? Because so I try to be true. So every story I tell is based on a true situation, a true encounter. At the same time, I embellish them. I reserve the right to make the point because I'm a storyteller to an outcome.
Right. Yeah.
I reserve the right to embellish them a little bit, but safe embellishments. But I'm not lying because I won't remember it, and then I'll look like an ass the next time I'll lose the trust of the organization because I've made stuff up.
Right.
So I think it's one rule of thumb is to ground them in truth or ground them in reality, but don't be reluctant to embellish to get the point across. A question for you: is it just for leaders? I was talking about
no, heck no.
So storytelling.
Yeah.
Is it an organizational thing or a leadership thing?
I think leaders are required to be good at it. To be successful leaders.
But can Scrum Masters tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it only helps you. It only enables your communication to be received more effectively. Again, we go back to the show, don't tell. That's walking away from that Stephen King book, and it was almost a novel, was that now I try and frame things in a show, don't tell.
Right.
Because I know I am a fact-based person.
Yep.
So it's like, it's blue. That's it.
Yep.
Discussion over.
Yeah.
As opposed to, okay, I'm going to show them it's blue. I'm going to show them why it's blue. I'm going to show those things. And then they're going to say, oh, it's blue. I get it now. As opposed to me just being like, dummy, it's a blue. Right. But that's how my brain works. So it takes a lot of effort and energy for me to hit the brakes on myself and rework that into a story. Luckily, I'm old enough now that I've got enough stories to make that happen. Now, 20 years ago when I was new, I just didn't have that many stories. But I've just built up, to your point, the repository. I've just been observing along the way. I've been lucky with the challenges I've been put in front of and the teams I've been a part of, and everything that goes along with that, that we've done some cool stuff. And it's provided me with lessons learned.
Yep. One thing that we didn't talk about so far is I have another talk that I gave. It's called Putting the Story Back in the User Story. Mm-hmm. And the way I start this talk is I talk about the original intent. And again, I'm not a buddy of Kent Beck.
Right.
But I was using Agile back in the day when user stories were on 3x5 cards. And the intent back in the day, in the early recesses of user stories, was they were not words on a card. It was not as I want so that. It was a story. So the words generated discussion, almost like a campfire, a little mini campfire, where an XP team would sit around with a customer or a surrogate, and they would talk about, they would get excited about the requirement. They would get excited. What is it? What is it not? What does it look like? What does the design look like? And they would get, there was storytelling. It was almost like a campfire. And then the next card would come in, and then a campfire. And we've lost that. So with Jira, with tools, with templates, with backlogs, with pressure to get stuff out the door, I don't think product owners nowadays, and I put that burden on them a little bit, I think product owners should become storytellers with their story stream.
Absolutely.
They should create this notion of, it's not, don't look at the card, don't look at the words, let's look at the essence. Let's have a conversation, all of us together.
Well, I found that's what great product owners do when they're introducing a feature or functionality to a team. Is it's not, hey, I've created these 45 stories, let's go.
Right.
It's, okay, folks, here's what's happening. Our customers are running up against
there
this.
You go. Like, what problem am I trying to solve?
Right. So it goes back to problems.
I saw this customer and they struggled and sweat came down and they really got frustrated with it, and we can do something about that. That's story. That's narrative. Yeah. That's that power of narrative.
But that doesn't happen if you're always doing just-in-time planning. And the number of teams I see that continually respond with just-in-time stories. So they're in planning and they're finishing up their stories, or they're sizing stories, or they're adding AC, or they're doing whatever. The only way you can get to storytelling is if you actually get good at refinement. And you have a well-refined backlog, and you can do that. You can spend the time,
create the space
investing
for that.
Yeah. But there's so many people that are just, it's like they maybe they are, I don't know what happens, but they create this other busy work that prevents them from delivering on their primary role of creating and telling stories.
Well, creating this shared vision rather than a list of requirements to be executed, right? It may not be a Gantt chart, but it's a list of things to implement, and just do it rather than let's be creative, let's solve problems, let's look at outcomes.
Right.
And that was the essence. I mean, literally, the cards were not in
There's
the
probably
early
a reason
days.
it's called a user story.
Exactly. And we've lost that over time. And what I try to do in the workshops is to get that back. I actually have a breakout where I have some scenarios where I inspire people to write stories, and then to just get a really energetic conversation around what is the goal.
Right.
And I can't tell you, energy level low, energy level high around that. And it's not just the energy level. It's getting the team over here. It's work. Over here, it's team-based problem solutioning. You know what I mean? And it's the collaboration. It's the ideation. It's the innovation comes from the storytelling creates that innovation and the creativity. Gets everyone in the game.
Yeah.
There's no way you leave you don't leave a storytelling episode disengaged.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You do leave backlog refinement. You can leave that disengaged. So I wanted to bring the product
that's really good
story aspect in as well. Do you think we covered her? Net.
I feel so. Here's what I'm mentally wrestling with. I feel like we talked about storytelling, and we didn't do it in the manner we're telling everybody to do it in. Like, did we really present, like, here's the problem, and here's the solution, and here's the I feel like we should have done a better job telling a story about storytelling.
Oh. Maybe that's another...
That's like next level. Like if we had done that, then we'd be like,
No. We set the stage for that. Could we do that in another Metacast?
Sure.
Why don't we do that in another Metacast?
Okay.
We could do like a role play or something like that.
Yeah, we keep getting feedback that role playing is the way to go. So we'll do that.
Let's do that.
Okay. I'm excited.
All right, so are we done? So we stick a fork in episode 1. We have an episode 2 teed up. It may not be directly the next episode, but I'm excited about the telling stories.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
So from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina.
You're Bob Galen.
I'm Bob Galen.
And I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake
and bake.
Take care, y'all.
That pause. Like, wait a minute. What's going on? Okay. Intro. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to it. Conference season hasn't started up yet.
Yep. No conference. I mean, I'm not doing conferences or anything.
Just writing, thinking about ideas for topics in 2019. And that's
really that's the key. When I mention anything about mentoring, probably not. But I want to come back off of streams and stuff and talk about mentoring a little bit.
Okay.
You know? I thought there was something really interesting there that we were talking about.
Okay.
All right.
Welcome to the intro. I'm Josh Anderson.
I'm Bob Galen.
What are we talking about today, Bob?
I don't know. I mean, I was watching The Grinch over. It was such a boring story, and then I was watching, the little island of misfit toys and the other Christmas story. Yeah. So everyone, this is like we're post. This is right post New Year's Day.
Yep.
And I just so many Christmas and New Year's stories.
So we're talking about storytelling today.
Are we?
We are.
So let me get excited again. So let me tell a story. So intro. We're talking about storytelling. So no teasing.
Nope.
Who presented it?
This is from Lori Blue, as she's known in our Twitch stream and on Discord. So she's always
Lori,
a generator of great ideas.
This is a wonderful idea. A lot of energy. In fact, Metacasters, this is part 1 of a multi-part episode.
Are you going to say part 2?
So we're teasing you for part 2. All right. Okay. So before we get into it, just get us your feedback. You've heard this before, but listen this time because it's another story. We really care about feedback. We try to answer questions. You're what's driving the topics in our direction. So please give us questions, themes, topics to discuss. We embrace that.
Absolutely.
The other thing we like is little likes or something. Is it?
Yeah, likes, any shares, anything you can do.
Shares,
help us out. The more we get those, the more eyes and ear balls we get. Did I say ear balls?
Ear balls.
The more eyeballs and ears we get in front of, and that helps us deliver on what we're trying to do. Ear balls. That's right.
All right.
You'll never forget that.
So on to the episode.
On to the episode.
Ear balls. Are we still twitching?
We are still twitching. Let me stop the twitch.
Is anyone there? Probably not.
We do have a couple folks there. We got 6 people.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Metacast.
Yeah.
Hope it didn't kill you. That which does not kill us makes us stronger.
Absolutely. So now you see how it works behind the scenes. 100+ episodes. And that's how they roll.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And I'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye.